Welcome everyone again to another Knowledge is Power session. Today's power session is proudly sponsored by IMI, Material Handling Logistics Incorporated, as well as Questor Technology Incorporated. And we are pleased today to have with us a very special guest, Canadian-born actor Jessica Matten. Jessica, welcome.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. Jessica's story is, I find, remarkable. She's not only a Canadian-born actor, but she's also the president of Lemon Cree. For those who want to follow her, I'll put her information on the video later, but she stars in Tribal as the lead in Tribal, which is a great show. I've watched it. I recommend that everyone stars in shows such as Frontier, alongside other big name actors, Jason Momoa, to name a few. I know that you're good friends with Jason. I'll let you talk about that as well. But I also wanted to mention that Jessica is a champion for Indigenous communities in North America, and she'll share some of that with us today, I'm sure. So without any further ado, Jessica, I will hand the floor over to you, and please share your story with us.
Yeah, well, again, thank you for having me. These are always fun. So, yeah, it's interesting because people's life journeys are so different. Sometimes, most of the time, I find that our lives lead us in places that we never expected we'd go. So I never wanted to be an actor. It was never a dream for me, none of that stuff. I actually thought that I would work in business my entire life. When I was young, my dream was to literally work as a trauma ER surgeon or as a lawyer, or, in my head, that was the ideal of a high-powered job. So I started off working for a land development firm for a good 10 to 12 years. I worked in advertising firms in London, England. I also worked at fashion magazines for a while too. And with all that being said, I wanted to break the mold within my family and be the first one to get a degree. So I got a science degree from the University of Alberta. And it's kind of weird in life how all I knew is that I wanted to break what was in my family, because I come from a line of a lot of survivors. On my mom's side, we are Sotu, Métis, Cree people. On my father's side, he's Asian and white. So his story and the line that he comes from is also very unique and different. And it's interesting how both sides of my family, though, have had to overcome challenges with dealing with discrimination in Canada. And anyways, I'm getting carried away here, but I just, what my ancestors, what my parents had to go through, I'd like to think that I'm just, a part of them and carrying on what they began. So, so pretty much I Googled how to become an actor after the recession of 2008-09. And at the time I had plans to move to New York City. And I thought that I would continue to work in the fashion cabinet or in the editorial space at a magazine. That's what I was doing in England. And I had originally stopped my university degree to move to England to pursue advertising and fashion and just figure out my life at 21 years old. And then when the recession happened, obviously, I was like, oh, I don't think moving down to the States is a smart move right now. So I decided to move back to my other hometown, which was Vancouver, British Columbia, where I am right now. And I was raised a lot on the different reserves out here, Chwassons First Nation, Tsleil-Waututh Nation, and in the city as well. And I just remember film being the major industry out here. So I literally Googled, how do you become an actor? And it said, oh, you need to get professional headshots, you need to find an agent, and you begin. And I was like, oh, that seems simple. So I literally Googled the top headshot photographer at the time, and I sent my submissions into 10 of the top agencies out here. And I was fortunate that I think 8 or 9 out of the 10 responded back. I had meetings with all of them. Everyone was super lovely. But there was this agent doing a mother-daughter team, funny enough, who I ended up signing with because they were so lovely. They hugged me after the interview. I leave the room and they chase after me like, Jess, come back. And they're like, wait, we just looked at your resume. You have no acting training whatsoever. And I was like, no, I thought you guys knew that. I thought this was like a job interview. And they're like, that's interesting. We still want to represent you if you're interested. You don't have to sign anything with us, but we would like to test you out and send you up for a couple of auditions. If you happen by some miracle to book one, then we'll just keep commission, but we want to try you out. And I was like, you know what? I respect that so much. And, you know, I respect that you see something in me. So I did that. The 2 auditions they sent me out for that week, I booked both. And they were like, this never happens. And I was like, so naive. I was like, oh, I thought that's what you do. It's a job interview. You just charm them. So the agents got a little ahead of themselves too, because they believed in me so much that they sent me up for my first actual audition as a waitress. And you would think, oh, saying, can I get some sugar for your tea, sir, would be easy. It wasn't. I completely bombed it. It was so embarrassing, as all new actors go through this. And I was like, okay, I need to get some real training now. And I ended up studying for about 3 years part-time, you know, because I was a grown adult and I had to support myself, and I was living alone. But yeah, that's how I got started. And I'm going to be honest, it's like there's this idea that people are discovered overnight. That does not exist in this industry. If you do, you are literally one in a few million.
Okay.
Yeah, I always say I'm a 7-year overnight success, because it wasn't until 7 years in that things really blew up for me in my career. That's when I landed the TV show Frontier. At the time, I didn't know that I was actually the first one to be cast, even before Jason Momoa on the show. And the producers found me through a short film that I had done maybe 4 years prior called A Red Girl's Reasoning, which you could see on YouTube. And that was directed and written by a dear friend of mine, El Maya Tailfeathers, who is actually now an Academy member. So it's what I mean. We all started off somewhere, and it's so cool to see us all rise together, but a slow rise, 10 years in the making. So yeah, so it's been a wild ride. You know, I'm so grateful that I took my friends to set one day, because they have this idea that it's all glamorous. It's absolutely not. They only stayed for half an hour, and then they were like, Jess, this isn't what we expected at all. We thought like you would shoot one angle and then another. We didn't know that you guys did it like 5 or 7 times. I'm like, oh yeah, you got to change the lens. There's a master shot, the medium shot, the close up. It's a huge, like each shot takes about 2.5 to 3 hours to film. And they're like, we're out. This is way more difficult than we thought. And that's the mentality behind anything in life. It's a choice when the tough gets going, if you want to bail, if you're out. And the reason I believe that I've had the success I've had so far is because I've maintained consistency throughout all the ups and downs. I had other jobs on the side, such as Lemon Cree as well, to keep my spirit and my heart fulfilled too, when you can get really beaten down in this industry, and it has nothing to do with you not being a great actor. I just called myself great. No, just kidding. But it has nothing to do sometimes with your lack of skill. Really, it is kind of, it's like a lottery machine. It's like you keep pulling and eventually something will give, but you just have to believe in yourself and keep going. I think acting and the world of the film industry is an extreme example of that, but I feel this applies to all other careers, does it not?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, you know, like even working out at the gym, you're not going to get gains in muscles within a month necessarily. It could take like an entire year just to get your body even conditioned to those kind of new exercises that will get you those muscles. And that's like acting too. You know, it's constantly a journey. As actors, we're constantly trying. Well, I know I could speak for myself. I'm trying to constantly get better at what I do. It's for no one but myself, because I also don't believe in this comparison attitude. There's no one that you should compare yourself to, because the only person getting in your way constantly is yourself, right? It's all in here. It's the internal dialogue we constantly feed ourselves if we want to accomplish or try to accomplish something. I don't know if my mom spoke about this when you interviewed her, but as I get older, I really, really begin to understand the philosophy behind changing my lens in the way that I choose to look at failure, and really seeing failure as not a negative, but really an amazing positive. And that's something that I think we can all understand theoretically, but to actually apply it and to actually have good feelings after you failed at something is a completely different ballgame. And that's something that I feel that I'm at a point in my life where I get excited about, which is kind of weird, because you take a wonderful message out of every failure. There's so many beautiful lessons. And if anything, failure is a way to show you how to get better and how to actually win. It's like constructive feedback that we get as an actor on set. You're constantly, it doesn't mean that you suck, once again, it just means there are different ways and there's different solutions to go about things. So with all that being said, yes, the film industry is extremely tough. It's also extremely beautiful and fun when you do get to collaborate with amazing people and doors do open. I think it's easy for me to stay, people are always like, oh my God, Jess, you haven't changed, don't ever change. And I find that an insult too, because to me, that's a stereotype that just because you're in front of a screen that you're supposed to be arrogant or something like that. I could tell you straight up, I'm in rooms with, and I have been in rooms with the biggest A-list actors you will ever meet, constantly. Like I was in a room last November with Martin Scorsese, Al Pacino, De Niro, Shia LaBeouf, Nicole Kidman, Charlize. They're all kind, chill people. People at the top of their game, they're the kindest. And the few times that you hear these stories of divas and blah, 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 it's not as common as I've experienced. People are really chill and cool. And I think it's just because people are staying in their lane and doing what they love. And, I respect the immense amount of focus and clarity and discipline and self-motivation that takes, because just like everyone else, we have our days where we just don't want to do anything. But for those days where I haven't wanted to do anything, or I felt like I wanted to quit because things do get tough, I always think about what is my underlying motive to continue in this industry. And I've been fortunate that I've had a strong purpose, and that is I always want to help shift the perspective out of our Indigenous people. What does it mean to be a Native woman in this day and age? I was raised very traditional through my mom, through powwows and sweat lodges and, ceremony and everything. So even though I identify as a mixed race person, I am very much an Indigenous woman through and through. And I just knew that from a very young age, I was afforded an opportunity, a privilege in a lot of ways to live in and out of two different cultures. So I'm able to see things from outside as well as be inside. Mm-hmm. And I just knew that I made a choice that I wanted to use that to help people. I think the most important thing in life is to be able to help others. Even like what you're doing with this podcast, it's like you're reaching out to other people to help others understand that we all share a lot of similarities. We go through a lot of ups and downs in life, and I think you can attest to that. It's just the best feeling in the world is helping others. And that's why Lemon Cree has been such a driving force, even for my film career, because I've turned down roles with big DC comic pilot shows that wanted me as a lead. And I just said, I can't portray this character because she's a stereotype within herself. She's over-sexualized. She's always drunk. She's always doing drugs. Mm-hmm. And she's a Native woman. And I'm like, I know this is based on a comic book. And I read all the graphic novels because I do my homework. And I was just like, I cannot sit with myself that I would be helping to perpetuate a stereotype when I'm one of the many Indigenous people out there trying to break these stereotypes. I want strong, powerful women because those are the women that I was surrounded with my entire life. And I just want to see that reflected more and more on screen. And with Lemon Cree, that's what we do. We build warriors. We empower our people. People who are going through difficult circumstances whether it's in their communities, in their homes, their mental state, their well-being. I mean, that's all encompassing. And we're really big on like building our people up. What do we get from it? Selfishly, the satisfaction of helping others, but also we get to see our communities flourish, and that only benefits us because there's a ripple effect into like how it affects our families too. If your community is doing well, your families are doing well, we're going to do better.
That's right.
So
Absolutely.
yeah.
I love what you said there, that that's your driving force behind what you do, and you don't want to fall into those stereotypical roles. I know that when I was younger, much younger, when I wanted to watch a movie on TV with somebody that looked like me, I would be assured to know that it was going to be a gangster, or it was going to be a drug dealer or a rapper or something like that. And then as you get older, obviously, we saw a change in the industry. And so I have a lot of respect for what you're doing and the roles you're playing. I quickly wanted to touch on tribal if I could, just
Yeah.
because I think it's very relevant with kind of what's going on in the world today, in Canada today, in policing specifically. Can you talk to us a little bit about your role in tribal?
Yeah, so Tribal is a TV series that we shoot for APTN, which is the Aboriginal People's Television Network. And I play a police officer that comes off of a reserve and is appointed chief sergeant of the entire police force for even the downtown city department. So it's a young Indigenous woman in a room full of the old, as we say, the white boys club. So it's we wanted to touch on stereotypes and prejudices, not even that non-Native people have towards Native people, but even the prejudices that Native people have towards white people. We thought that was fun to play with, and it was just something different. And the reason that the creator of the show, Ronnie Scott, made that was he again wanted to get rid of the stereotypes that existed for Indigenous women as well. And that is, he said, I remember him calling me after we had worked together on another TV series that he did called Blackstone. And he was like, Jess, I'm writing the script and I really want you as the lead. She's going to be kind of like a Native superhero, as in she's not going to fall into the traditional stereotypes of, oh, woe is me, she comes from such a abusive family, blah, blah, blah. He was like, I want this character, Sam Woodburn, to be strong, to come from a very positive family, a very successful family, and her just trying to navigate and do her job. I want to see what that looks like on screen. And I was like, yeah, because that exists. That completely, I'm one of them. A lot of my friends are. I have a lot of Native friends who are attorneys, doctors, bankers, but our world doesn't know that that even exists because it's not portrayed on television, let alone an Indigenous chief sergeant. So how cool and original. So that is what the show is about. And Ron is always big on tackling a lot of political topics that are currently relevant to what's happening in Canada. We touched on the pipelines, missing and murdered Indigenous women was a big part of our show too. But not until the end. It's a procedural show, so there's always a new drama every episode. But the main thing is that we always try to talk about things that are relevant to this day. When Ron wrote the pipeline episode, we weren't having any issues with it in the public at that time. But then lo and behold, when we finally got around to going into pre-production, it was happening. And then by the time the show was released, we were definitely in the heat of it with Wet'suwet'en, which was the tribe out here that was going through a lot. So it was just kind of like eerie how the timing of the show was right on with like what was happening in the world at that time. I'm in quarantine in Vancouver now, and I just came back from California because we're starting to prep pre-production, and we're going back to camera for season 2, October 5th. Okay. So I just wanted to spend time with family here and, start preparing so I wouldn't have to do the quarantine 2 weeks into shooting. And
that's right.
Yeah, it's kind of a weird way to navigate. So yeah, that's
excellent. Again, it's a great show. I recommend our KIP followers check it out. It's called Tribal. It's on APTN. for those who are interested in following it. Jessica, thank you so much. Is there anything else that you wanted to share with our followers? I see you as a huge inspiration, not only for the Indigenous community, but for other racialized and non-racialized communities. Just as a Canadian actor who's done very well for herself. Again, coming from not necessarily the easiest beginnings, but working your way through the challenges to bring you to where you are today. Do you have any final remarks for those listening today?
Yeah, I'm just snowballing off of what you said. With this, with other races and stuff, like the whole movement with Black Lives Matter is such a positive because obviously the Black community is a lot larger than the Native community, and I just believe if we learn to respect our Black brothers and sisters a lot more, and we also give them larger opportunities in Hollywood, that's only going to have a ripple effect that I hope happens, that we end up being a product of that later on. It's like, let's get more of our Black brothers and sisters in front of the screen in the non-stereotypical roles. And hopefully that will happen with our Indigenous people too. And a great example, I got a film with Disney and 20th Century Fox coming out this December called The Empty Man. And I was hired not because I was Native, but because I was just the best actress for the role, the director thought. So
That's right.
so it's happening. It's happening. Positive things are happening.
Well, lots of congratulations to go around. We look forward to seeing more from you on the screen. And we thank you so much for sharing with us today.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Lovely to meet you.
All right,
And
take care.
thank you to everyone who's listening.
All right.